Bobo, bon combat. Aye Bobo, bon combat. Aye Bobo. Let's deal with Aristide. Just give our brothers and sisters a proper understanding. Because we've touched on him today. We've said his name a few times. But let's give our brothers and sisters, our viewers, a proper understanding of who is Aristide and FAMNI LAVALAS. What is the significance of Aristide and that political party in the recent history of Haiti? Let's go into a little bit more detail for us, please.
Yeah, and so, FAMNI LAVALAS is, the LAVALAS political party was the first major broad grassroots movement in Haiti that brought together all the poor people. Because before, Haitian politics has always been run by some elites, where they always felt like, even though Haiti had this radical history, right? But remember, we had a 36-year, almost 40-year dictatorship by Duvalier. First of all, it's important to know that the U.S. invaded and occupied Haiti from 1915 to 1934, changed our constitution, right? Rewrote our constitution. The 1805 Revolutionary Constitution of Haiti had a clause in there that said, no white man shall return on this as landowner or boss. The U.S. Changed the constitution during the first occupation, the 19-year occupation. Franklin Delano Roosevelt boasted that he himself rewrote it, right? That removed that clause, right? So you have that. And then we were left with, this military that the U.S. actually put together, the gendarmerie, which would then later on, morph into Duvalier's Tonton-Macoute, right? So, which was like the militias that would terrorize the people during his reign of terror that was very much funded and supported by the U.S. And so by the time he's by the late 1980s, where people are protesting, he's, the French sent a nice private plane and fly him out to France. And his wife, by the way, is on Twitter. She's still living off the riches of our money in Paris, right? So she's there. By the time you do that, you have the right.
I think. Sorry, sister. I think Kanye West and Jay-Z have a song about that. But let's move on. Go ahead.
Right. But so what you have is this in the upheaval that comes with the removal of this dictator, we end up having like one military government after another from 1986 to 1990. And then finally, you have this groundswell of this movement of poor people with this Aristide, who was this young Catholic priest, who was preaching liberation theology, which also, people need to look at WikiLeaks, because the Vatican hated Aristide. They didn't say they said he was not a real Catholic. In fact, they were part of the regime change, by the way, in 2004 against Haiti, the Vatican, right?
Sorry, sister. Part of the reason for that, though, was that he had the audacity to make Vodou an official religion.
Vodou and the Haitian Creole language, yes.
Right.
And so up until Aristide, no state leader had actually addressed the people in their language. Most people don't speak French in Haiti. Most people speak Creole. That's our language, right? And so this was a groundswell of movement, and they voted him in. And after the 1991, the U.S. backs coup d'état, there's a decimation of Aristide supporters. This is the beginning of like destroying this political party. And LAVALAS stands for avalanche, right? Think about like, the flood, right? The flood coming down. That's what LAVALAS stands for. The flood.
And family is family. Flood of the people.
Right. FAMNI LAVALAS becomes a party later, but the movement itself was the flood, right? And this is the first time the local poor people.
Sorry, sister, I don't want to interrupt you again. But just to emphasize the point that LAVALAS was a movement among the people before it was a political party.
Right. It was a movement. It was exactly some movement of like the poor, dark, folks in Haiti. Let's be real about that, right? And so that the majority of them look like me, right? And so this is what we have. This movement of these poor people. They love this man, right? And so the coup d'état, the thing was and he was also a populist, right? So he wanted to move away from he did not want to impose neoliberal policies that the U.S. wanted. They wanted cheap labor, because that's what people always say. Well, why Haiti? I'm like, they wanted cheap labor. They want our resources. They want our land, right? The fact that most Haitians still own their land, unlike Jamaica, right? Like things like that. In terms of like, you own your land and we work our land.
We still have crown land. We still have crown land in Jamaica, by the way.
Right. And the people saw that in him, which is why they had the coup d'etat behind him. And so the demonization of Aristide begins after that coup d'etat. So if you read the press from like 1991 to 1994, it's just nonstop. In fact, there's an article called "How to Turn a Priest into a Cannibal" that goes over just how terrible the media has been in terms of, I remember this, I was a child. So I still remember like, oh man, does he have, the mainstream is like, oh, he's got mental illness. What's wrong with him? This man is crazy. So that's how they present Aristide. So by the time he comes back, and he had to come back because, and this is where you start having the breakup of the party, because he had to come back because they were killing so many Aristide supporters between 1991 and 1994. Right. And then you had a flood of migrants leaving and heading to Florida, of course. And so Bill Clinton is like, well, we got to stem these immigrants and so on and so forth. But they gave...
Immigrants start protesting. There's mass protests taking place, in pro-Aristide protests in America and also in Haiti during this period as well. Go ahead.
And so one of the things that happened is that, the U.S. is like, okay, well, we're going to have to bring Aristide back. And Aristide's like, well, I don't want my, the killings are too much. And so so this is where he was forced to make these compromises that would actually impact everybody, and that actually turned a lot of the true leftists against him, because he took the terms that Clinton gave him. And so he thought he could actually stave off the slowdown of privatization of our resources and so on and so forth. So they brought him back, and he agreed to take on some of these reforms, right? And so the left, the extreme, the far left, who were very much part of the Marxist left and so on, so they were just like, how dare you? How could you? And then also the other thing is Clinton sent him back because Haiti was under military, what do you call that? There was military soldier had taken over coup d'etat after coup d'etat after the end of the dictatorship.
Military junta, they call it.
Right, military hunters, right? So Clinton came back with 20,000 Americans. And I remember this because I was young. I went to visit when Aristide first came back. And I went to a meeting with, a group of people into Haiti's like National Palace. I'm walking into National Palace. Aristide had just been, and then right to the right, it said U.S. officials only. Right, inside the National Palace in 1994, right? So that tells you, and not only that, because Aristide was so afraid of the Haitian military, he disbanded the Haitian military, disbanded the police because they'd been behind him. So he had his security. Security was from the U.S. A bunch of these tough former Marines from Washington State, right? They were the ones. His security were these foreigners, which actually ended up being his demise later on. So what you have is, by the time Aristide is taken out again in 2004, 2004 is really when you have the decimation of the Aristide, of the Lavalas party, because we had the U.S. imposed a whole new government, removed everyone who was a Lavalas supporter, Lavalas party member, put a lot of them in prison, killed a lot of the regular people, and really dismantled that party. So whatever's left now is not the same Lavalas that you had in 1990 or in 2000.
Sister, just on that last point that you just mentioned, now some of the propaganda that is used, and maybe there's some truth to it, right? Let's clarify this now, about Aristide in this particular period, 2001 to 2004, is that he was basically leading and egging on quote unquote gangs. So he was involved in the gangsterism. To what extent is that true? Right.
Well, the thing is, part of it is Aristide had very strong supporters, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them, went out and went against some, because there was a lot of protests, funded by the NGOs, the National Endowment for Democracy, which funds, color revolutions, right? But Aristide was not, that was one of the key things that Chimeras. There's also an article that's, they call it the Chimeras, that Aristide supported gangs. And I completely go against that, because I do think there's a way that people try to link Aristide to Duvalierism or to what happened under Michel Martelly, and I completely disavow that, because I think that's also part of the propaganda. If you all say the mainstream media is terrible, how are you going to believe what they're saying about this man that they hated so much? So much so that I want people to, there's a video in Democracy Now, on Democracy Now, that show, right, where Aristide gets back to Haiti in 2011, and go see how the people
receive him.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people from the airport running alongside the car all the way to his house, right?
Yes.
And so part of that is we have to be very careful, because I do think the part of the demonization of Aristide, and look, I don't think Aristide was perfect. And I want to say this, right? Because one of the things is you could be critical of a person, you could be critical of their policies, but the key thing for me is the fact that you can remove somebody from power.
Yes.
A democratically elected president, he won the majority. You remove him from power before he's finishing his term. Whoever supported that deserves, my contempt. Because the fact that you would support a regime change of a democratically elected president, that is to me outrageous. So he could have been bad, right? Nobody was, you did not have a military force go and remove Trump from the remove them from presidencies. I mean, you're in London, you have an unelected prime minister. And but, it's just like, look at that Sunak guy. How many of you voted for him? Right? So for me, anyone who pushed for the regime change of the first democratically and only democratically elected president of Haiti really deserves contempt, because that's absolutely outrageous, because it is pushing for that regime change of this democratically elected official, which led us to where we are today. And this is the result of a state that has no elected officials, that is being run by a cabal of Western, white collar suit wearing gangs.
Yes, my sister. I don't want to take advantage of your time. Yeah, I know you have to go. I just want to say one more thing on that, because we have to highlight now the fact that when because you've mentioned already that he had to agree to certain terms, that he wasn't actually allowed to run for a while. He gets back into the presidency, and then he decides to push for reparations, and that is the catalyst for them trying to remove him again. So even though he was critiqued and so on and so forth, and we might all critique him about for some of the things that he agreed to, the move then was to go on the world stage and demand reparations from France and put Western imperialism basically on the world stage from a sitting president. That facilitates.
That's exactly. But the other part is, and even though he did those things, he also fought to raise the minimum wage of Haiti. And he used to say, to go from poverty to dignity, right? He said,
what is the minimum wage in Haiti, sister? What is the minimum wage?
I think it's slightly under $5 a day, but the thing is, if you look at, there's a whole series called WikiLeaks in Haiti. The WikiLeaks papers revealed that every single U.S. administration, including the Obama administration, pushed to stop the governments from raising Haitian minimum wage. One of the key things they hated Aristide was he was just pushing for, he's like, look, I just want to go from like absolute objection to poverty. We don't even need to be rich. We don't need to be middle class. I just want the people to get paid. Right. So they need, baseballs are being made in Haiti. Canada's making all kinds of money in Haiti. They need the minimum wage to stay low. And in the WikiLeaks papers, you see the U.S. government saying, no, you cannot raise the minimum wage. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. And so we also need to know that the point was to actually, even though he did these compromises, not all of it was. And because if he was really fully compromised, they would have left him in office.